Hi, welcome back to the channel and a new video for the Pelargonium and Geranium Society. Mr Pelargonium or David Taylor here. A bit of a sum up video really, having a look around the greenhouse just to show you where we are with my show plants. Filming this on the last day of May, 1st of June tomorrow. Meteorologically speaking, first day of summer. Lots going on. All sorts of things have happened and I'll tell you about it now. Hello there, well, welcome back to the channel and a new video for the Pelargonium and Geranium Society. It's been a really busy time since I put out the last video. I think the last one I did was the showing my new Regal hybrids. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the upcoming show season, what's happened to my plants, and a great deal has happened really in the sort of 2.5 weeks since the last video that I did. I actually went over to Italy about a week and a half ago for a long weekend, visiting a Regal collector with the social media name of Lisa Gereni. Hello Lisa. And we had a fantastic weekend. She's a massive collector of Regal Pelargoniums, and I'm going to slip in a little video now showing you around her monumental collection of around 600 Regal varieties. An absolutely amazing site it was. They were all just really beginning to get going. There was a few gaps. Realistically, she puts all her plants, they live basically in an apartment. And apart from the apartment, they've also got a separate sort of office studio area where they work full time, her and her husband Williams. And they've obviously got sort of some good sort of balcony areas, huge great balconies as part of these apartments. And the bulk of her collection is in their sort of main apartment area, which has got a huge balcony that probably measures, oh goodness me, it's difficult to equate totally, but it must be I'm getting 10 meters, I would say, long at least. And sort of 3 to 4 meters deep. So you can see that they are stacked up there so that the back ones obviously get some light. Now, something to appreciate is they live in Turin, which at the sort of basic end of the scale gets quite warm summers, but of course in the winter it's really quite cold. And they explained to me, about 13 years ago, they did have a very cold summer and she lost the bulk of her stock and had to basically rebuild it. But it's completely rebuilt now and it looks absolutely stunning, as you can see from these images. They've got a smaller balcony on the other side of their apartment there, and it really does look superb. She has all her younger plants on the other balcony, and in her office studio, which is in a different place, that she has other older plants as well. And it really was a sight to see. Some absolutely fantastic plants. As I said, up to 600 she's got there. And let's just say that I think 1 or 2 of them may have found some cuttings that are arriving back here at my greenhouse here. But the less said about that, the better. So there we are, that's a little look round Lisa Gereni's fantastic collection of Regals. We are just around 2.5 weeks to the national show. We have got a more local show in a week and a half, but it's very debatable whether I'm going to be able to get any plants to that. Now, 2.5 weeks ago, or about 3 weeks ago, when we last had a look around my greenhouse, it was very debatable whether I was going to have any zonals ready at all. But the interesting thing is, in the sort of second half of May, my zonals have really gone mad, and they are now throwing loads and loads of bloom. Here is one of my Gosbrook Susannas that's sort of growing up to a floribunda size, throwing lots and lots of bloom now, which is now sort of 2 weeks ago, there was absolutely nothing showing on these whatsoever. So it just goes to show the difference that a bit of warmth and the good light is making to growing. These are now throwing a lot of bud. That will certainly should be ready at its more or less at its prime come the main national show in 2.5 weeks. Well, I'm hopeful it's going to anyway, because although, as I say, it's been light and bright and generally dry, of course, it actually hasn't been that warm. And some of the dwarfs here, yeah, I've got some bloom beginning to come through, but the plants are just lacking a little bit of bulk. You may be able to see that in here. There's a lot of gaps, and a lot of my zonals are certainly showing that. I don't know why. I've not treated them any differently than I normally do. There's absolutely no problem in bulk for the Regals, and a good example of that is my own Shriven and Pearl, which has grown on to produce a stunning bulky plant. But the problem, as always with my Regals, is getting the bloom to come. There's a bit of bud just beginning to break, and it is a little bit one-sided, to be honest. They are being turned regularly, which I would always recommend that you do. If you're in a greenhouse and you've got your exhibition plants, you need to be turning them regularly to get good even light all around the plants to produce a balanced plant, producing bloom all the way round. I'm doing that with these, but that's struggling. That will almost certainly not be ready come the show. The Zophia Popes, a plant that always does fairly well for me, is just beginning to flower. And this has got fairly balanced flower. In a way, it's another plant that could do with a little bit more bulk. And as I said in my last video, if you need to get a bit more bulk, continue to give them balanced feed. Now, one of the problems, of course, that we do have, if you've got a really stunning plant, and I'll admit that this one here, this giant standard, is looking superb. I've taken what everybody knows that I've grown this. Now this is 2 foot round now, and I would say this would almost certainly be superb for the show. Probably going to be actually at its best in a week's time, potentially to get to the Bristol show. But without a van, this would be impossible to move. Apart from the fact that it is, it's 5.5 foot tall, so my metric conversion, 1.75 meters tall. It's huge, but without a van, you would never be able to get this to a show. I would never risk lying it down in a car. I don't even know that the length of it would fit in quite a big estate car anyway, to be honest. But it looks truly stunning. It's done really well, actually, this plant, considering it had a bit of dieback as well. You may remember in the winter, this had quite a bit of serious dieback. I kept cutting it back, and it's thrown. That has actually probably done it good in many respects, because it's actually thrown lots of side shoots from that growth. And it now looks absolutely stunning. It's pretty well balanced. It's in a big pot, but yeah, the big problem and the big challenge is always transportation to a show of another one like that. And I've got the bigger, even taller actually, standard of Sophie Dumaresque here. Just see the edge of it there. I'll probably show you in a minute. I'll take the camera off. But, that's big and tall and looking pretty decent. It's not got as good a bulk ahead as that. That'll probably need another winter to cut it back and make it grow a bit more round, but that's looking pretty good in itself. But the problem, as always with standards, is getting them to a show. It's not an easy task getting a really long, huge plant like that to a show. Right, now the bulk of my standards now have been put outside. All my big plants, all my tall, big standards have all gone outside now. Doesn't do them any harm. We have been having some slightly chilly nights, not too bad, about 8, 9 minimum. But the temperatures will be going up now all the time as we get more and more into June. But it does toughen them up and makes them, you know, a little bit stronger for doing it. As you can see in some of these in various points in the garden, in relatively sheltered areas. What I often do with some of the standards, I will put a secondary stick in them, secondary pole, just to secure them and make sure they're not going to be blowing about should we get any slightly more windy weather. You can also see here, this is my ivy leaf, which we potted up, must be getting on for a couple of months ago now. This has grown on very well. It's putting on a decent bit of growth. It did have one plant did have a little attack of green fly, which I had to tackle. But it is growing away very strongly now. Not overwatered, as I've always mentioned with your ivy leaf varieties. Just go careful with your watering. Don't overdo it. They don't need to be overwatered, ivy leaf pelargoniums. So just, you know, think about what you're doing if you've got ivy leaf pelargoniums. You do not need to be overwatering them, because you can get this problem called oedema, which is the corking on the underside of the leaves. Now, one thing I did mention, of course, was that with about 3 weeks to go, I'll go back to this plant here, should have been removing all of the open buds. I mean, it's 2.5 weeks. You could do it. Obviously, if anything is starting to go over, which you can clearly see if it begins to crinkle up and burn up, you can get rid of those now anywhen from now on, right up until the show. It's better to have less clean blooms or even florets than having really burnt up and ones that are clearly gone over. So that's something that, I mean, we just passed the 3-week mark to the national. Obviously, if you've got an earlier show or a later show, you obviously time it appropriately. Okay, so that's just about it for this video. Really a little bit of an update video on everything that we've looked at in the spring. Now, the only one I haven't mentioned is our little friendly Zonal, which we were growing. It's actually got a little bit of red leaf there, stress. I'm just going to take that off. But I will actually do a completely separate video about that, because we're almost ready to do another stop on that. So it's got a really good lengthy stem there. And I've even got a little label in it saying test plants. So let's concentrate on that in a separate video. In the meantime, if you're not subscribed and you're just calling along, think about hitting that subscribe button and put your notifications on so that you get alerted to any new videos that I put out. But in the meantime, I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.